Ever since Elena's arrival, the dynamics of our household have dramatically shifted. Luke, whose face used to light up whenever I entered a room, now barely acknowledges me with a grunt, choosing instead to immerse himself in his phone. His job hasn't changed much. It's as demanding, or perhaps less so, than it used to be. Yet, something within him seemed to disconnect the day we brought Elena home. "Another painting today, Hazel? That must be your third this week," Luke would remark, his voice sharp and tinged with disapproval, whenever he saw me setting up my easel. There was a time when he admired my art, even proudly displaying my favorite piece in his office. Those days are gone. "Yeah, it's not like I'm using your money," I'd reply, attempting to mask the quiver in my voice as I focused on blending blues and yellows on my palette. But inside, each dismissive word from him felt like a blow. "Could have fooled me. Look at this place. It's like a tornado hit it," he'd say, scanning the room, his gaze critiquing every misplaced toy and blanket as if they were evidence of my shortcomings. "Look, I'm with Elena all day, and she's a handful," I'd counter, my voice less steady than I'd like. "Maybe if you helped out a bit around here." "Help with what?" "You're home all the time, you handle it. That was our deal, remember? I make the money, you manage everything else." "Not my fault you can't keep up," he'd retort, cutting off any possibility of discussion, leaving no room for my rebuttal. Each evening ended the same, him turning away, dismissing me with a scoff. In the mornings, when he left for work, Elena would tug at the hem of my shirt, her little eyes filled with confusion. "Daddy mad?" she'd ask, her tiny lips trembling. "No, baby, Daddy just has a lot on his mind." "Here, help Mommy choose the colors," I'd say, pulling her into my arms and trying to muster a smile, guiding her hand to pick out colors. As we painted together, the harshness in Luke's tone would fade, replaced by her laughter and our shared canvas of colors. My confidence in my paintings wasn't born from arrogance, but from a reminder of a time when I felt vibrant and assured. That evening, as I always did, I tried to welcome Luke home with a warm dinner, the house tidy and Elena squeaky clean from her bath, dressed in her best pajamas. "Hey," I greeted him, the aroma of roast chicken wafting through the air. He responded with a grunt, shrugged off his coat, and threw it over the couch. His gaze flickered to the easel in the corner of our living room. "Still haven't gotten rid of that junk, huh?" "It's not junk, Luke. I'm working on something," I replied, weariness seeping through my words. "Looks like a waste of time and money." "You could be doing something productive, you know," he remarked, dismissing my words as he walked past me to the fridge. "I am doing something productive. I'm raising our daughter and keeping our home, and I'm trying to hang on to something that matters to me," I stated firmly, clinging to the threads of something that once brought me joy and a sense of self-worth. "My artwork is profoundly important to me." However, Luke hardly seemed to notice as he casually cracked open a beer and took a long sip. "Call it whatever you want, Hazel, but to me, it seems like you're just passing the time and making a mess that I'll have to pay someone to clean up." The hurt wasn't from the harshness of his words. I was becoming accustomed to those. It was his blatant disregard for my dreams, my passion for painting, that cut deeply. There was no room for my aspirations in Luke's world anymore. "Dinner's ready," I announced, a statement that felt more like a rehearsed line I delivered weekly. As I served the dinner with trembling hands, Luke's parents, who were seated at the head of the table like judges, hardly acknowledged my effort to prepare a warm, hearty meal. Their attention was fixed on the easel beside the window. "What's this then?" Luke's father, Jackson, a robust man with a commanding voice, pointed at my unfinished painting. "Oh, that's just something Hazel has been tinkering with," Luke replied with a dismissive chuckle, waving his hand as he took a seat. "Real high-class stuff, right?" Laughter erupted around the table, the kind that felt mocking and hollow, failing to reach their eyes. "Oh my, we have an artist now, do we?" Luke's mother, Delilah, chimed in, her tone sharp enough to cut through steel. "Why don't you show us your latest masterpiece, dear?" Jackson added, his smile more of a challenge than a show of interest. Rooted to the spot, I felt heat creeping up my neck. "It's not done yet," I mumbled. But Luke was already at the canvas, handling it with less care than a dish towel. "Look at this, folks," he laughed, turning the canvas around as if he were a game show host revealing a prize. "It's supposed to be a landscape. Can you believe it?" Jackson's loud laughter filled the room again. "Looks like a blind dog's nightmare," Delilah remarked dismissively, her nostrils flaring with disdain. "Why waste your time with this hobby? Get a job, or do something productive." "As if anyone would hire her," Luke sneered, placing the painting back with a thud that made my heart sink. "The job market's tough out there, and well, look at her." I swallowed hard, my hands balling into fists at my sides. "I do plenty. I take care of Elena and this house," I began, but my words faltered under their collective stare. Delilah prodded her food with her fork as though she suspected it was poisoned. "Taking care of your family is the least you can do," she sniffed. "But honestly, Luke, if you'd married someone with a little ambition..." They continued to belittle me with every word, while I just stood there. The room felt like it was closing in, their words pressing on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt myself becoming smaller, insignificant in their grand performance. Something in me snapped as soon as the meal ended. With a forced calmness in my voice, I excused myself, marched up the stairs without looking back, and locked myself in the bedroom. "Hazel," Luke's voice reached me about half an hour later, filtering through the door. "You coming back down? We need to clear the table." I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, the floodgates of my pent-up emotions would surely open as well. A cry or weeping might have escaped, but I refused to give them that pleasure. I was browsing through my banking app, my brow furrowing more with each passing moment. Our financial situation was dire once again this month, and the list of groceries and essentials wasn't getting any shorter. Elena, ever growing, needed new shoes. From the living room, Luke's voice broke the silence. "Hazel, why is there a $57,100 charge for Martin's art supplies?" I was busy on the app, transferring the last of my personal savings to cover the costs. "Just picked up a few necessities," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Come on, Hazel. That's money that could have been used for something important," he retorted, his tone flat, tinged with disinterest and perhaps disappointment or frustration. I sighed deeply. "Art is important to me, Luke, just like your golf is to you." I didn't mention how his golf clubs had cost more than a year's worth of my art supplies. "Yeah, but golf is networking. It's part of my job. What does your painting get us?" "A cluttered house and wasted cash," he grumbled. "It helps me cope with the day," I murmured, feeling the familiar pull of conflict within me. "Through the day? We need to be smart about our finances, not just spend on whatever helps us get by." "Budget, Hazel, budget," he lectured, as if the word was a leash tightening around my neck. "I buy my art supplies with my own money, Luke." The money I had before. I trailed off, not wanting to escalate the argument. My past, a time of job independence and dreams of my own gallery, felt like a distant chapter. "Your money's our money, isn't it?" he snapped, the implication clear that my financial independence was a thing of the past. "And that money is running out fast. What then?" Later at the store, I opted for cheaper brands, counting every penny, every compromise. At the checkout, I chose the smallest paint tubes, small enough to go unnoticed in the cart. Back home, I unpacked groceries with methodical precision, each item a symbol of our precarious financial balance. Luke, noticing the budget brands, remarked, "Putting back some luxuries, are we?" "Yes," tightening the belt, I responded, avoiding his gaze and concealing the receipts, a record of my necessary transgressions. He hummed, rummaging through the bags as if searching for a mistake. "Where are the Greek yogurts you like, and isn't this the cheaper coffee?" I shrugged, busying myself with the pantry. "Prices went up. Had to make some cuts." "But I don't see any cuts in your art budget," he pointed out, noticing the new brushes hidden under a loaf of bread. I faced him, our eyes meeting for the first time since the conversation began. "This keeps me sane, Luke. My art keeps me going." A plaything in her curious hands. "Her birthday is coming up fast, and Daddy wants us to make something special. Can I help?" Alina's eyes sparkle with the prospect of a shared project, even as I weigh the feasibility against the looming deadline. I nod, swallowing back my apprehension. Of course, honey. We'll make it a team effort. With my resolve steadied, I reclaim my voice, now steady and resolute, as I grip the edge of the countertop, halting the trembling in my hand. In these trying times, maintaining one's composure feels almost like a privilege. His words echoed in my mind as he gestured toward the brushes, a stark reminder of our strained conversations. That evening, as I began to paint, it wasn't inspiration that guided me but sheer determination. Each brushstroke became a rebellion against the stifling expectations set by Luke. Yet, as I worked, memories of a time when these brushes brought joy instead of strife flooded back to me. Meanwhile, Luke was entangled in business meetings across the country, barely pausing as he laid out my latest assignment over the phone. Hazel, you need to come up with a birthday gift for my boss's wife, Hannah. Her celebration is in a week.
Got it.
Do we have a budget for this? I asked, my gaze fixed on our stretched finances displayed on my laptop. Just handle it. Make it thoughtful, he replied distractedly, his attention already elsewhere. Exasperated yet undeterred, I felt the familiar rush of frustration heat my cheeks. You expect a thoughtful gift, yet I'm to conjure the budget from thin air? I muttered to myself after he hung up. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes, calming the storm within. Without the funds but needing to impress, I dove deep into Hannah's social media. Her love for art was evident, her feed a parade of gallery visits and luxurious canvases, interspersed with snapshots alongside celebrated artists. She valued the arts profoundly. An idea struck me like a flash of lightning. I could create a painting. The supplies were here. The motivation was undeniable. It would be a gift uniquely ours, impossible to replicate from any upscale boutique. Embracing the concept, I envisioned the painting coming to life, the strokes forming under my fingers. This personal touch was not just fitting, it was necessary. With resolve, I prepared to use every available moment to create something worthy of Hannah's sophisticated tastes. Setting up my old easel in the living room, transforming it into my studio, I braced myself for the challenge ahead. As I began, my daughter, Elena, stumbled upon the scene of artistic disarray. "What's all this?" she inquired, eyes wide with wonder. "It's a birthday present project for someone your daddy works with," I explained, tidying up as she poked at a hardened paintbrush. "Can I help, Mommy?" she asked, picking up the crusty brush, intrigued. "Yes, let's make it special together," I agreed, taking the brush from her, hopeful that our combined creativity could meet the high stakes of this corporate gifting challenge. Elena, gripping a makeshift wand or toy sword, furrowed her brow in confusion. "But why can't Daddy buy something?" she asked. "Elena, go watch your cartoons." "I need some time to think," I replied, not in the mood to explain our financial struggles or the complexities of my marriage to a 7-year-old. Muttering under her breath, a bit too much like me for comfort, she scampered off to the living room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The days wore on as I juggled my roles, daytime mother, nighttime artist. The canvas slowly came to life, evolving into an abstract reflection of the chaotic whirlwind that had become my life. Throughout the week, Luke remained distant, no calls, no texts, nothing. He was too engrossed in his own world of charts and deals, too busy to check in. Meanwhile, Elena, my little shadow, often returned to watch me paint. "You're really good, Mommy," she declared around day 4. "You should draw more." Her words warmed my heart, possibly the kindest critique I would ever receive. Maybe I will, I thought, encouraged. On the eve of the big reveal, the painting was complete, a raw outpouring of everything I hadn't been able to express. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind racing with worries about the reception of my work. What if Hannah dislikes it? What if Luke thinks I've wasted my time? The morning dawned clear and bright. I wrapped the painting in plain brown parcel paper, securing it with a bow made from one of Elena's hair ribbons. Why not add a personal touch? Holding the package close, I attended the boss's wife's birthday celebration, hoping my artwork would be well received. As I navigated through the crowd, my eyes low, I wished I could vanish into the background. Luke was there, freshly returned from a business trip, exuding success. His gaze swept over the polished, elegantly dressed women, then landed heavily on me. His expression soured as if he'd just bitten into a lemon. He scrutinized me, a silent judgment only I perceived, as the party's noise seemed to dim around us. His attention then shifted to the package in my hands. His eyes narrowed. Oh, that familiar pre-storm glare. "What's that?" he demanded, his voice barely contained. "It's a gift." "My painting," I responded, clutching the package tighter, wishing it could shield me from the impending confrontation. "A painting? You're kidding, right?" His voice rose, drawing a few curious glances our way. I tried to silence him with my eyes, but he was beyond caring. "You actually think it's appropriate to give her this amateur piece?" The whispers around us grew, like the beginning of a rainstorm. "Luke, please, not here," I pleaded, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "Did you lose your mind?" he roared. The room didn't just pause, it froze. His words, sharp and loud, made it clear. He thought I was making us look foolish. This was more than just a moment of embarrassment. It was a glaring revelation of our deep-seated issues, laid bare for all to see. Suddenly, we were the center of attention. Eyes darted our way, then away, and back again, as if they were spectators at a tennis match. I felt myself shrinking, wishing I could just dissolve into the floor. His face turned a shade of red I had only seen on stoplights. "Great, just great. Hazel," he exploded, throwing his hands up in frustration. "You don't think, do you?" The heat rushing to my cheeks was far from flattering. My hands trembled, but I clung to the painting tighter, it being my only anchor. Taking a deep breath, I tried to recall why this had seemed like a good idea in the first place. "Now everyone's going to criticize us, thanks to your foolish plan," he snapped, his words cutting through the air for all the eavesdroppers. I wanted to respond, perhaps even tell him off, but with the entire room's gaze piercing through us, I stood frozen, silently cursing the situation. The room erupted in laughter following Luke's outburst, each chuckle stabbing at me. Despite the room swirling around me, I caught the boss's eye. His expression mingled confusion with curiosity. His wife, Hannah, looked on, her expression a mix of concern and fascination, which oddly gave me a glimmer of hope. With a commanding wave of her hand, she silenced the room. "Let's see what Hazel has for us," she declared. I moved as if on autopilot, my hands still shaking as I unwrapped the canvas, revealing the artwork I had poured my soul into. Hannah's eyebrows arched in surprise. "Oh my," she murmured, and the room fell silent, anticipating her verdict. "This is quite something, Hazel," she continued. Luke, still simmering beside me, muttered, "Yeah, something all right." Ignoring him, I searched Hannah's face for a sign. It's for you," I stammered. "Happy birthday." She studied the painting, her head tilted. "It's bold." "I like bold, don't you, darling?" She nudged her husband, who was difficult to read but nodded in agreement. "You don't see something like this every day." Luke attempted to regain control. "Oh, come on. You're saying you like this mess?" But Hannah snapped back with a sharpness that stopped him in his tracks. "Luke, I'd watch it if I were you. Your wife has talent, and I won't have you embarrass her further." "It's unbecoming." The room dropped into a tense silence, the kind so thick you could hear a pin drop blocks away. "Look at the colors, the life in it," Hannah continued, her voice softer now. Luke tried to interject. "Well, sure, if you like that sort of thing." But Hannah cut him off. "I do. It's decided. This goes right in the foyer." I blinked, stunned. "Are you sure?" The boss chimed in, hesitant. "It's not exactly." Hannah shot him a look that made him falter. "Standard, right? It's unique." Her arm reached out to me, a gesture of solidarity. "Thank you, Hazel. This here's a real gift. It's got soul." And just like that, the room buzzed with chatter once more. However, the atmosphere had changed. People were now nodding in agreement, some even regarding me with what appeared to be admiration. Hannah, cradling my painting as if it were a precious artifact, turned her gaze towards me once more. "So, Hazel," she began, drawing the room's attention, "have you ever considered exhibiting your art in a gallery?" Luke scoffed audibly. I heard it, but my attention was fixed on Hannah. "Nah, who'd be interested in my art?" I dismissed. "Don't worry, Hazel. I would, and I know others who would too," Hannah replied confidently, her eyes sharp and persuasive. Luke attempted to brush it off with a laugh. "Come on, Hannah. She's just experimenting." Hannah raised an eyebrow at him. "Well, she experiments better than some established professionals I know. What's it to you?" I felt a wave of anxiety, standing on the brink of something monumental. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. What's there to think about? Just dive in. I'll support you, Hannah declared, her expression making it clear this wasn't a suggestion but a directive. A nervous giggle escaped me, sounding slightly hysterical even to my own ears. "Sure, right?" I agreed, and Hannah's face lit up with a smile. "Good, it's settled then." Following our exchange, whispers circulated around me like moths drawn to a flame. Individuals who had previously overlooked me were now eagerly discussing my art, clinging to me as if seeing me for the first time. It felt surreal, like I was navigating through someone else's life. Luke reappeared, his hand pressing almost painfully on my back. "You're not serious about this, are you?" His voice had a sharp edge, like a knife poised to slice. I faced him, feeling the collective gaze and the allure of a new path. "Yes, I am," I said, my voice resonating with newfound strength. He scrutinized me intently, as if truly seeing me for the first time that evening. "But what about us?" he questioned. "What about us, Luke?" I echoed. We had been disconnected far longer than I cared to admit. That seemed to jolt him. He stepped back, confused. "I thought we were fine." I faced him squarely, my tone more frigid than intended but necessary. "You thought wrong." Luke ran his hand through his hair, defeated. "So, what? We just ended." I glanced down at the colorful paint splattered across my nails, at the rings that had lost their significance. "We ended it a long time ago, Luke. Now we're just acknowledging it." He had no response to that. I watched him walk away, his shoulders slumped. Hannah touched my shoulder gently. "You okay, hon?" I nodded. "I am. Thanks to you." She winked. "What are friends for, right? And you, Hazel," she continued, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "You're going to make this town take notice with your art. Just wait and see." With that, a rush of excitement surged through me, not just for an ending but for a new beginning, painted in the most vibrant colors I could envision. Elena and I, we'd be more than just okay. We'd be boldly, unwaveringly us.
Hoping to claim the inheritance, my husband Tripp revealed his father Mac's prenuptial agreement, declared, "I don't need a life with you anymore. I'm inheriting $5 million. I don't need you when I have that money." His cold words signaled the demise of our marriage. After years of living together, I felt like a mere obstacle in his pursuit of wealth, but he remained oblivious to the significant secret tied to the $5 million inheritance. "Mom, is it true that Grandpa is in critical condition?" My daughter Janice's unexpected question caught me off guard. Mac, Tripp's father, had a serious health problem, and the information was supposed to be a secret between Tripp and me. "Did you get that information from your dad?" I asked Janice. The only one who could have told her was Tripp. "Yes," she said. "On a call from Dad, he told me to renounce Grandpa's inheritance." Janice's words unsettled me. With a single phone call, my peaceful life was about to be shaken. A few days after Janice's revelation, Mac passed away peacefully. Since getting married, I had lived with Tripp's parents, providing unwavering support during their health struggles. It had been 5 years since Tripp's mother passed away, and now, with Mac's passing, the funeral went smoothly. Yet just as I thought I was free from tension, Tripp's behavior underwent a dramatic change. "What are you doing here? Why hasn't it been cleaned properly lately?" Tripp frequently pointed out minor dust and small stains. "I'm sorry, I must have missed it. I'll clean it right now," I responded quickly, trying to ease his irritation. However, The issue wasn't just about cleaning. Why are you serving this? I wish you'd pay more attention to the taste when you cook, he complained, not even glancing at the food I had prepared. Is there something bothering you lately? I gathered the courage to ask, but it only worsened his mood. It's useless to deny it. To be honest, the food you make isn't good. I've been tolerating it because my parents never complained, but I've always felt its tastelessness deep down. Tripp's words pierced my heart, marking the first time he had criticized me so severely. My mom always cleaned and did laundry perfectly, and at mealtime she cooked with care without cutting corners. You're nothing like her. I've been patient, but I can't stand it any longer, he stated firmly. This was the first time he compared me to his mother and criticized me. All I could do was deeply reflect on myself. I'm truly sorry, I said, tears starting to flow uncontrollably. I couldn't have imagined that he valued my cooking so little. Do you think anything will change if you cry? Your tears mean nothing now. Don't show them to me, he said coldly. Tripp abruptly stood up, leaving the house and slamming the door behind him as he walked away. Tripp, where are you going? Come back, I called out, but it seemed he didn't hear me. My mind was in turmoil, unable to comprehend this sudden change. Until a few months ago, we were a couple sharing everything, holding hands and navigating life's challenges together. I couldn't understand how we had become so distant. And then I remembered the call from Janice, revolved around Mac's inheritance. There was a hint of hesitation in Janice's voice that night. Tripp arrived home much later than usual, and I missed the chance to inquire about it. I wondered if Tripp had discovered information about the inheritance and chose to keep it to himself. Attempting to approach Janice, I questioned, "Why were you and your dad discussing inheritance while Grandpa was still in good health?" Janice expressed doubts about Tripp's actions and mentioned conveying the same concerns to him. Considering Janice's words about the inheritance falling into her hands, if not divided differently, I couldn't help but recall Tripp's recent cold behavior towards her. Doubts crept into my mind. Was he planning to take all the inheritance and abandon me? This thought tightened my chest, and tears welled up once again. In my pain, I became acutely aware of the sounds around me. As the room fell eerily silent, the phone rang suddenly, echoing throughout. Though I didn't feel up to answering, considering the importance, I checked the caller ID. It was Tripp's name, the same Tripp who had left the house earlier. Answering felt tiresome, but I didn't want to face any backlash for ignoring it, so I hesitantly picked up. "What are you doing? Don't keep me waiting. I'm running out of time." Tripp's sudden authoritative tone caught me off guard. He was indeed stubborn at times, but yelling without reason was unlike him. Shocked by his changed demeanor, I let out a slight sigh, hoping he wouldn't notice. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" I asked cautiously. "I have something to talk about. I'll be home soon. Stay home and wait for me," he said, his voice noticeably colder than before. I replied with a brief, "Okay," and promptly hung up. Looking at the clock, I realized more than 3 hours had passed since Tripp went out. Overwhelmed with confusion and pain, I hadn't noticed the time. After a while, I heard the door open and Tripp's footsteps. A sweet scent of body wash, one we didn't use at home, wafted from him. That unfamiliar smell intensified the pain in my chest. "I'll be straight. It's over. I want to end our relationship. As a token of gratitude, I'll give you $20,000. I'm genuinely tired of you not managing things at home. I want to live peacefully in my old age," he declared. I had dreamt of a peaceful old age, only to have that dream shattered by none other than Tripp. "Why are you—" My words trailed off as I searched for what to say. Tripp looked at me with a smug smile. At that moment, a loud ringtone from his cell phone filled the room, an unfamiliar tone, different from what I was used to hearing. It felt as if this unusual sound hinted at communication from someone specific. "I'm sorry, but I haven't finished my errands yet," Tripp said, his voice softening ever so slightly. I noticed this change, the softness in his tone, different from how he usually spoke to me. It seemed kinder, more intimate. Along with the sweet scent of body wash, the unique ringtone, and his softened voice, I sensed he was hiding something. A sense of unease settled in, confirming what I had suspected all along. After ending his call, Tripp looked down at me with emotionless, cold eyes. My intentions haven't changed. I want you to sign this document. I'll contact you later. Make sure to have it signed by then. I don't plan to come back to this house. Remember, this house is now yours. Without uttering another word or even looking at my face, Tripp headed toward the door. I couldn't stop thinking, what did all these long years of our marriage mean? A few days later, I found myself at a lawyer's office, gathering information about Tripp's actions and Mac's inheritance. When I explained everything to our daughter Janice, her complexion changed. It was painful to reveal our mistakes to her, but out of love, she shed tears and showed strong determination to confront Tripp. She introduced me to a lawyer to support us. Hello, I am Whitmore, she introduced herself. I will be handling your case. I will support you to the best of my ability. The woman named Whitmore, sitting across from me, seemed to be in her late 40s, exuding a calm aura. Her neatly groomed hair and professional attire provided me with reassurance. I'm truly sorry for approaching you suddenly. My name is Lily Cohan. I'm a bit nervous since it's our first meeting under such circumstances, I uttered, trying to ease my nerves. That's all right. I have already received some information from Janice, Whitmore assured me. Based on what I had researched, and the information Whitmore had separately gathered, we verified the facts. Tripp didn't have any siblings, so with Janice renouncing the inheritance, the substantial fortune of about $5 million would all go to him. We also uncovered an important fact about his affair with a woman named Martha through a joint investigation. How do you intend to proceed from here? Mrs. Whitmore asked in a gentle tone, her eyes soft. I plan to confront him with the evidence we've gathered and discuss the next steps, I responded, appreciating her support. After transferring the fee and a brief discussion, I quietly left the office. 5 days later, I received a call from Tripp proposing a meeting at a quiet cafe. I arrived a bit earlier, choosing a seat by the window to enjoy the calm outside view. When my husband and his new girlfriend Martha walked in, he smirked with a sense of pride. Are you prepared for the divorce? He asked. I was a bit surprised that this was his first statement. It seemed he was convinced he was in full control. Is this your new associate? I asked, my eyes widening as I hadn't expected him to bring Martha to such an important discussion. I was astonished by his decision. Was this the man I once deeply loved? Had he changed because he cheated, or had he always been like this? I wondered. Are you Tripp's wife, right? My name is Martha. I've recently started dating him, my husband's companion uttered, smiling. Her sudden smile left me grappling to grasp its meaning. I've heard a lot about you from Tripp. Seeing you in person, you look a bit aged. I wonder how Tripp endured all these years. I feel a little sorry for him, Martha continued, trying to get under my skin. She seemed to take great care of her appearance, looking much younger than her actual age. Compared to her, I might have looked my age, but I couldn't accept the way she phrased it. Marta, I don't know you well, but it's clear you have a sharp tongue. Still, there's no need to be so harsh, I replied, trying to defend myself while keeping my tone steady. She gave a smug smile, clearly enjoying the moment. At that moment, Tripp interrupted. Lily, we've both seen this coming for a while. I think it's time we face the reality and move on. I just want you to file the divorce papers. I was taken aback by Tripp's expected attitude. Hold on, there's something I want to discuss, I said, my voice steady, though my emotions churned inside. A hint of confusion was evident on Tripp's face. What are you getting at? Is this all about my father's inheritance? Is that why you're doing this? After all our years of marriage, you're deciding this now? Tripp's tone was defensive as he shifted in his seat. I wanted to know the truth behind all these events, I said firmly. I can't see how my father's inheritance and you are related. That's solely my father's, Tripp replied coldly. I've heard detailed stories about your father's vast inheritance from Janice. I know how much it's worth, I said, my voice sharpening with accusation. So what? That inheritance isn't for you to take, but I'll answer. Actually, more than the inheritance itself, the end of taking care of my parents is one of the reasons I want to part with you. You were just playing the role of a caretaker, he concluded. Tripp's words stung. How had Tripp seen me only as a caregiver and not the loving wife I used to be? I didn't even have the energy to cry. I want to start a new life, I replied. Can we speed this up, Trip? Martha interjected, growing impatient. Besides, have you still not let go of Trip? She added, looking at me. Don't make me repeat myself. I'm not thinking of a new start with you now. I want you to file the divorce papers, Trip said coldly. Waves of emotion struck my heart with intense anger and deep sadness. My hand quivered slightly. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out the divorce papers. My name isn't written yet, I said, my voice trembling slightly. The situation isn't settled yet. To hand it over, you remember promising me the house and money, right? Yeah, I did say that. I'm a man of my word, so I plan to give you the house and money, Trip responded casually, as if it were a trivial matter. His response surprised me. You say you're kind, but a truly kind person wouldn't just use their wife as a mere caregiver and then abandon her. So I'm demanding rightful compensation of $30,000 and the rights to the house, I concluded. What compensation? When we talked about money, it was supposed to be $20,000. You always nitpick at the very end, Trip said with growing irritation. Your attitude of trying to pay me the absolute minimum is so obvious, but the difference of $10,000 means a lot to me, so I think $30,000 as compensation is fair, I insisted, my voice strong and unwavering. Your girlfriend. It's Martha, right? I thought of claiming from her too, but in lieu of that, I went to settle for $30,000, and I intend to sign the divorce papers right here in front of you, I added, my eyes narrowing. Unexpectedly, Martha commented, $30,000 should be fine, Trip. Pay it if you're satisfied with it. Her statement startled Trip. Finally, Trip accepted the alimony of $30,000. Then I pulled out the documents that Mrs. Whitmore had prepared. Now we need Trip's signature on the land title change document and the notarized alimony agreement, I added confidently. Trip looked surprised by my preparations, but I calmly said, I have a life to continue, easing his suspicions. We both signed in the required spots, and Trip smiled, as if anticipating something. So, Lily, are you ready to sign the divorce papers now? He asked, a slight smile tugging at his lips. Yes, I replied, handing over the papers. Here they are. As I carefully wrote my name and firmly stamped it, Trip couldn't hold back his laughter and burst into loud guffaws. With this, you and I no longer have any relationship, he said. Also, I have something to tell you. Actually, I'm set to inherit $5 million, so I didn't need someone like you anymore. Thanks for the divorce. My ex-husband's mistress couldn't resist making a snide comment either. Your ex-wife must be so foolish to have given this up so easily for just $30,000. It's surprising. Behind me, as I left the loud laughter of Trip and Martha, I hurriedly headed to the city hall. My only goal now was to complete this procedure as quickly as possible and sever ties with the two of them completely. They might be laughing happily now, but I wondered how long their happiness would last a month later. I quickly sold the house I received from Trip, prepared for a new life, and decided to live near my daughter Janice, who planned to start her life near her husband's parents' home. Since Janice's in-laws lived nearby, I thought there would inevitably be moments I'd feel cautious. Contrary to my concerns, Janice's husband warmly welcomed me and was always considerate, which I found very reassuring. My daughter Janice seemed angry at her father's actions at first, but when I told her a certain fact, her expression changed completely, and she smiled brightly. I had a hunch that Trip would soon realize my plan. As proof, I deliberately didn't change my mobile number. The day that intuition became a reality came sooner than I thought. From the afternoon, my mobile rang repeatedly, and sure enough, it was my ex-husband. He called many times, but at first I purposely didn't answer. After receiving repeated calls, I finally picked up. Hello, why are we doing this? I asked, unable to hide my surprise. What's the matter? You called out of the blue, raising your voice. What's the problem? I continued. Where are you right now? Trip demanded. I thought he might have visited the house we used to live in, but in reality, that house had already been sold, and the new tenant might have moved in, or it could have become an empty lot. Considering this fact, the image of Trip's panicked demeanor surfaced in my mind, and I felt a little sorry for him. Since we've decided to divorce, there's no need for you to be involved anymore, I reminded him. Where did Janice go? I can't find her, Tripp said, his voice tense. It seemed he went to Janice's previous house. Of course she wasn't there. I managed all the information and procedures related to Janice's husband's family home, so Tripp had no way of knowing. He seemed to have hit a dead end and contacted me. Yes, actually, Janice has moved to a new place, I informed him. Why didn't you tell me something so important? Moreover, did you know about that too? He asked, now frustrated. It seemed my husband finally realized the truth. By that, are you referring to the significant hidden debt that Mac had? I asked, my voice calm. Actually, when I investigated Mac's inheritance in detail, I was shocked by the amount of the inheritance. But at the same time, I found out about a considerable hidden debt, probably from while he was alive. He estimated he could repay the debt with about $5 million and hid that fact from us. However, he passed away midway through repayment, and the hidden debt was left neglected. And when you officially receive an inheritance, you are also obliged to inherit such hidden debts. Tripp was blinded by the allure of easy money and neglected thorough verification and investigation. That was his big mistake. So, I have a question. Did you really know about my dad's debt? Tripp asked, his tone accusatory. Information is easy to come by, I replied. It becomes clear to anyone with a little search. That's why I noticed it. I imagined Tripp turning red with anger on the other end of the phone. I had my suspicions, but his real goal was money after all. Besides, about that property, if I had known about my dad's debt from the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten involved at all, he confessed. I understand how you feel, I said, though I thought deep down that he was just avoiding the consequences of his choices. But think about it. Putting aside the money issue for a moment, you gotta marry a very attractive woman, right? Isn't that pretty lucky? I said, trying to steer the conversation away from money. I don't know if Martha chose me because of my assets, or if it was truly love, but as soon as Martha found out about my debt, she left me, my ex-husband replied frustratedly. I thought she would, I said. It's exactly as I expected, Tripp. How about starting over with me? Tripp's tone suddenly dropped and became emotional. I feel deceived by Martha. I just realized now you're the person I really need. I wondered if he had forgotten everything he did to me. I'm cornered every day. I'm being rushed by collectors, and the debt I can't repay is piling up. I'm at my limit. I really feel my life is in danger. Help me, please, Tripp pleaded, his voice shaking. Even after hearing his desperate plea, I calmly thought, if I were in this situation, would Tripp help me? I carefully chose my words and took a deep breath before answering. Right now, I'm living peacefully and am truly satisfied. And in the days to come, I want to live in peace. You might have forgotten, but remember what was said at my response, I said firmly. My ex-husband was momentarily lost for words on the other end of the phone. You mean back then? He asked, his voice uncertain. Yes, exactly, Tripp. I'm really grateful that we were able to get divorced. Thank you for giving me a chance to choose a new path, I said, feeling the finality of my words. I felt the tremor in Tripp's voice and his tears, but for my future, I made up my mind and quietly ended the call. This marked the complete end of our relationship. I don't know how Tripp's life is now or how he's repaying his debt, but I hope he's making an effort somewhere. Lily, how about taking a walk outside while looking at the beautiful scenery? My companion suggested as I smiled, feeling lighter. Currently, I'm enjoying my days with a wonderful person I met through a hobby in Houston. He's very warm and always with me. Spending time with him brings me unparalleled happiness.